Chapter 8, The Whispering Winds of Doubt. The rest of the week passed in a blur for Grace. She had always prided herself on her ability to stay focused, to compartmentalize her personal and professional lives. But Simon had a way of breaking down those walls, and she found herself increasingly distracted by thoughts of him. Their lunches had become a regular occurrence, a small escape from the pressures of the office, and each time they were together, the connection between them grew stronger. But with that connection came an undercurrent of tension, one that Grace couldn't quite shake. The other women in the office had started to take notice of the time she and Simon spent together, and while no one had said anything outright, she could sense the whispers, the subtle glances that followed them. It was a Friday afternoon when Grace's unease finally came to a head. The office was buzzing with the usual end-of-week energy, people wrapping up their work and making plans for the weekend. Grace had just finished a meeting when she heard a knock on her door. Looking up, she saw Kelly, another one of the newer hires, standing in the doorway. "Got a minute, Grace?" Kelly asked, her tone light but with a hint of something else. "Sure, come in," Grace replied, gesturing for her to take a seat. Kelly closed the door behind her and sat down, her expression carefully neutral. "I wanted to talk to you about something. It's probably nothing, but I thought you should know." Grace's heart skipped a beat, her mind immediately jumping to Simon. "What's on your mind?" Kelly hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "There's been some talk around the office. You know how people are, sometimes they read into things that aren't really there. But I thought you should be aware." Grace felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Go on," she said, her tone even. "Well," Kelly began, "people have noticed that you and Simon spend a lot of time together. There's been some speculation about whether there's something more going on between you two." Grace forced herself to stay calm, even as her mind raced. She had known this might happen, but hearing it out loud was different, more real. "People are entitled to their opinions," she said carefully. "Simon and I work closely together, and sometimes that means we spend time discussing projects outside of formal meetings. It's all professional." Kelly nodded, but there was a hint of skepticism in her eyes. "I get that, and I'm sure most people do too. But you know how it is, office gossip can take on a life of its own. I just didn't want you to be blindsided if it starts to spread." Grace appreciated the warning, but it did little to ease the discomfort that was now gnawing at her. "Thank you for letting me know, Kelly. I'll keep it in mind." Kelly smiled, her demeanor softening. "I didn't mean to stir anything up. I just respect you a lot, and I wouldn't want to see anything damage your reputation." Grace gave a small, tight-lipped smile. "I appreciate that. And I'll be careful." With that, Kelly excused herself, leaving Grace alone in her office, the door closing softly behind her. Grace leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling as she processed what had just happened. She had always known that being a woman in a position of power came with its own set of challenges, but this was different. She thought about Simon, about the way he looked at her, the way he made her feel. It had been so long since anyone had made her feel that way, and she had allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this could be something real. But now, with Kelly's words echoing in her mind, she couldn't help but wonder if she was being foolish. Could she really afford to let herself get involved with Simon, knowing the potential consequences? The office was already buzzing with rumors, and she knew how quickly things could spiral out of control. She had worked too hard to build her career, to earn the respect of her colleagues. The last thing she wanted was to jeopardize that because of her feelings for Simon. But at the same time, the thought of pulling away from him, of going back to the way things were before, felt almost unbearable. She had spent so long closing herself off from the possibility of love, of anything beyond the strict confines of her professional life. And now, with Simon, she had started to believe that maybe she didn't have to do that anymore. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of her phone buzzing. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from Simon. "Dinner tonight? There's a new place I've been wanting to try. I'd love to take you. Grace's heart gave a little leap at the sight of his name. But as much as she wanted to say yes, Kelly's warning was still fresh in her mind. She stared at the message for a long moment, torn between her desire to be with Simon and the need to protect herself. Finally, she typed out a response. Asterisk, I'm not sure it's a good idea. Maybe another time, asterisk. She hit send before she could second-guess herself, feeling a pang of regret as soon as the message was delivered. She hated the idea of disappointing Simon, but she knew she had to be careful. For now, it was better to keep some distance, to let things cool down. But even as she tried to convince herself that she was doing the right thing, Grace couldn't shake the feeling that she was making a mistake, that by pushing Simon away, she was losing something precious before it had even had a chance to truly begin. Later that evening, as she sat alone in her apartment, nursing a glass of wine, Grace found herself replaying the events of the day over and over in her mind. She thought about Simon, about the way he had made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. But she also thought about the reality of her situation, the whispers, the rumors, the delicate balance she had to maintain. As she finally headed to bed, Grace made a silent vow to herself: she would take things slow, be careful, and protect what she had worked so hard to build. But deep down, she knew that no matter how much she tried to distance herself, Simon had already found a way into her heart, and that was something she couldn't easily undo. Click follow for the next chapters.